Hi and welcome to stage 8. Today we're going to be looking at the Lakeland 100 stage, which is Dockray to Dalemain. We've got some graphics. It's 16.5k in total distance between checkpoints, 370 metres of ascent, 638 metres of descent. The discrepancy there is the first part of this stage you're actually coming down from the moors and then you climb up again, so there's 2 climbs but only 1 descent. So let's have a look at the elevation profile. So the start of this stage is the car park at the end of the coach road. You descend down from that into Dockray at the 2k point. That descent's all tarmac. You then switch to trail, little bit technical trail. Keep descending down to the 4k point, which is almost at the edge of Ullswater. And then you're climbing again technical trail up to the 6k point, which is Gowborough Fell. And then you're on a gradual undulating descent all the way to Dalemain at the 16.5k point. And here's the elevation profile compressed so that you get a more realistic idea of what you're facing. And as usual, we've got the Strava flyover so you can get an idea of the terrain from above. Okay, so you're starting at the car park at the end of the coach road and it's a descent down into Dockray, and this is all tarmac. You're on technical trail here. Make sure you lift your feet. It's very, very rocky on this bit here. And now you're climbing up round Gowborough Fell. And just around about here, you hit the halfway point of the Lakeland 100. There is where I fell over. And as you descend off of here, it's essentially, from here on in, it's farmers' fields and tarmac. Through farmers' fields here. Little climb up a hill. You're on tarmac now, and it's tarmac and hardcore all the way to the end, all the way into Dalemain. Downhill here. This is all tarmac, and just as you turn right here, off-road, it's real good hardcore compressed stuff, this. And there you go, all the way into Dalemain. And notes on the stage. This is a nice easy stage, well, easy-ish. You know, there's climbs, but it's nothing like what you're going to be facing on some of the other stages. Everything between Braithwaite and Howtown is, I won't say easy-ish, but it's easier than the other stages. So yeah. Good stage. You'll get some speed up in certain areas. There's quite a large portion of this that's on tarmac, and it's flat tarmac, so you will be able to get some speed up. Another note, Paul was with me on this run, my running partner, and as always happens when Paul comes on something, there's a fair degree of faff. So what you're going to notice on the video is there'll be little bits where there's almost sort of like 5-10 meters of footage missing. That's all that's missing, and it's just where I've cut out. Paul brought a drone with me, and obviously the drone keep adding to, you know, I had to keep putting it up and bringing it down. So it's just where I've cut those bits out where I was looking at him or holding kit for him while he was doing that. But generally, I've been through the video. You can, you know, you only ever skip down the track more than 5 meters. And the other thing to note is that on this stage, you hit the half point of the Lakeland 100. And that's about, off the top of my head, I think it's 5.3 kilometres into the run, but it is marked on the video. So that's the half point of the Lakeland 100. And then obviously once this stage is over and we're on to the next stage, we're into stage 9 of the Lakeland 100, but also stage 1 of the Lakeland 50. So let's see the video. Stage 8, Dockray to Dalemain. A bit of a wet Sunday morning, just outside Dockray. This lake's 16.5 k's if I remember correctly, but a lot of it is very flat. Well, even if you like. Also on this leg we're going to hit this halfway point of the entire course, and if you can see these woods behind me, the corner of those woods is 77k, so the halfway point is 4.6k after this point now. got Paul with me today. Hiya. Little fella's come up from Wigan to have a run. So yeah, I've got some company today, which, considering the weather, is more than welcome. So I'll see you soon.
Right.
That hurt my hand.
Yeah, Rob's just took a bit of a tumble, so I think we need to point out this savage tree root. Just yes, exactly. So if you come in on this way, just be careful of that potential trap. You all right?
At least it won't be fox.
I was filming in the opposite direction as he fell, and you'll probably notice the camera shake slightly. I think we'll pick it up as a minor earthquake on this. And there's currently a tsunami going across Ullswater. So, anyway, I think we're okay.
Yeah.
Alright, good man.
Okay, 16.5k later, we're on Dalemain Estate. This is where, last year this is where CP8 was. The tent was here, so there'll be a hot meal here for you, plus CP. And also your drop bags are going to be here as well. I'm going to have a spare pair of shoes, some dry shoes and some dry socks, maybe some dry underwear as well, because you never know, it might be peeing it down. So yeah, that's where the CP is. The start of the 50 is over there. The disembarking staging area for the 50 is there. That's where the coaches will be pulling up. You can see Paul up there messing about with his drone. So that's it. Yeah, we're going to go to Pooley Bridge now after this, because that's where the cars are. I'll film from here to Pooley Bridge, but when I do the next recce I'll be coming back here anyway, so we'll stick that on. Alright, take care.